Hello, Michael Chambers here again. This is a video for the future. So this has got a very interesting title, Michael Chambers for the Sovereignty of England. Okay, so let me explain. I'll circle back to it, and you'll get the idea quite soon. So we've got this big issue with Greenland being threatened by America, wants to march in and seize its resources, using as a cover for that the idea that it's going to be better for protection for in the Arctic against China and Russia. As we all know, the US is the biggest member of NATO. It has much more. It has allies in NATO that would support America. America's got the right to send lots and lots of troops into Greenland bases there, and it hasn't used. So actually, it's clear that the US will be much weaker in a weaker position to defend itself against or Greenland against Chinese or Russian aggression if it did invade Greenland. So it's clear that it's an economic uh, reasons, and also those economic reasons aren't that sound either, because the blowback, the reaction from European powers is having a huge impact on American revenues. So it's just really hard to see any logic to it whatsoever. It's just a pure disruption technique. And if there's any logic to it, then it's up to God Almighty to reveal it to us, because I don't know myself. Okay. So anyway, the bottom line is that we don't have any problem in England. We don't have any problem with the idea that Greenlanders should have the right of self-determination. Okay. It should make its own decisions on whether it wants to be part of Denmark, um, the USA, or any other relationship with another other nation. Okay. And I've done another video to about Somaliland. Don't know if I've released it by the time you see this, but I've Nigel Farage, or the leader of the Reform Party, is a passionate supporter in Somaliland independence, or at least the right of self-determination of the people of Somaliland. Okay, and I support that completely. Having understood the issues, um, and also generally believing in the right of nations for self-determination. Any nation of a significant size, with a kind of cohesive culture, cohesive demos, or group of politically related people should have that right. And not, I don't believe in that the people of Birmingham should have the right of independence, because it's completely impractical surrounded by England. So it would be a nightmare. But you get the idea. So but anyway, and I also think also, so we've got Greenland, we've got Somaliland, and I think there's another one where we have no problem with self-determination. That's Northern Ireland. Okay, if the Northern Irish people just said to Westminster, we want to have a vote on to renegotiate our relationship with you, and with different options on the table, union with Ireland, independence, or just like opening negotiations with the UK to because we're not happy with the current situation. Could be those three options really. Then you could rank them in order to have a good outcome that represents the best will of the people. And anyway, we wouldn't really have a problem with that, because for English people, it's hard for us to understand the politics of Northern Ireland. They're over the water. They feel a bit culturally different to us, and you know we don't care that much, except for military people who fought with Northern Irish troops, and we all should always recognise the outsized representation and influence of military from Northern Ireland in defending Britain. So I hope that's never forgotten. Northern Irish people have died for people in England to live. Um, so and also the incredible achievement of the peace process. The skills that those Northern Irish politicians have developed to negotiate within themselves on such a historically complicated issues are a great asset to the world. But anyway, at the end of the day, English people haven't got are happy with the right of self-determination for Greenland, Somaliland, and Northern Ireland. What about Catalonia? Catalonia, which is part of Spain, part of the political territory of Spain. I certainly have a natural inclination to think, well, yeah, if they feel that they want to have the right to renegotiate their relationship with the rest of Spain or with Spain, they should have that right, and they shouldn't have to ask for it. Shouldn't have to beg for it. So, and I don't have any, I don't have any affinity particularly with Catalans, not yet anyway, and not, I don't. It's just a kind of principle thing for me. A group of people who's not happy. They've got a similar culture. In Catalonia's case, they've got a different language, although they obviously speak both Spanish as well. So, and it's a huge part of the Iberian Peninsula. It's got the biggest city in it. It's got Barcelona, so it's definitely capable of holding its own. So what objection could I have as an English person to that? So that's four nations that I can't really complain about. That I were more than happy to say, yes, you've got the right of self-determination. Northern Ireland, Catalonia, Greenland, and Somaliland. Okay, so let's bring it closer to home to our nation. Okay, what about Scotland or Wales? Okay, well, it's part of the same. They're part. You might say they're part of the same island. Yes, and that's in that factor. But in principle, is it really that different? Okay, there's an emotional pull, isn't there, for the English? So we can relate a bit to the Spanish, saying, no, we can't let go of Catalonia. We can't give them the chance to break away because of all these reasons. But actually, ultimately, what's driving that is emotion. And what is that emotion? Fear, control. I don't know. You can describe it. Think to yourself how you feel about the idea of Scottish independence. Or how do you feel? Where do you feel it in your gut? What does it bring up? Does it bring up lots of positive feelings or negative feelings? And what's that all about when we have negative feelings about somebody saying, I just want the right for my country to choose its own destiny? So that's worth thinking about. It really is for all of us, members of big nations. And I have a certain affinity with Scotland because my adoptive parents were Scottish, even though I grew up in London with them. And although my Scottish adoptive father gave me a complex about being English, he used to call me an ignorant Sassenach, and he was a kind of post-war Scot that believed that Scots were the kind of superior form of Brits. They had lived through the Second World War and everybody was united. So they had no absolutely, as middle class Glaswegian, absolutely no inferiority towards the English at all. So anyway, that's well before any talk about devolution or independence as well. Um, so it is a process to get used to the idea that people's political identities develop and change. I lived as an adult in Scotland in my mid 90s, including joining Opus Dei there in Glasgow. And as an adult, I imbibed, I absorbed the sense of self, of nationhood of Scots. Okay, England was all down south, and it wasn't contrived. It wasn't artificial. It was felt, in the way that people reacted to it, that discuss things with each other. And that was before devolution, and I had to have that experience really to really feel what it's like to feel like you're a different nation. Because before living in London, and London's the center of the world for us, maybe less so now, but at that time, I didn't really kind of get my head into that cultural difference. So that's helped me every time I see some press statements about Scottish independence from parties that have got a predominantly English base. I just often see it's tone deaf. Okay, but I feel culturally English. I support England, um, but I do believe in the right of self-determination of the other three other UK nations and of ours as well. So England should have every right to organise its own national poll on on its own terms on relations with the other three UK countries, and to change our mind whenever we want. Now, changing your mind whenever you want has practical implications, and so if we should maybe if we did commit to a poll like that, we should say that we respect the result for 20 years, and we've communicated that to our partners. or something like that. Um, so, but there might be reasons why you have to change your mind quickly, security, whatever. But in any case, there will be no difficulty for the English to get the to get that vote because we control Parliament. English MPs control Parliament, so we can vote on that anytime soon and outvote all the MPs of all the other nations by far anyway. So obviously that's a different it's a difficulty for the other nations. So Scotland or Wales wanted to have an independence referendum. They couldn't get a majority. They wouldn't find it easy to get a majority in Parliament because they need a lot of English MPs to agree, and they wouldn't. So because of the policies of their parties, and so they have to go begging to Westminster saying, "Can we have the right?" And to be fair to David Cameron, he gave them that right. But when he gave them that right, it was a one-off, and he didn't renegotiate the Constitution, the Act of Union of 1707. He didn't give them the constitutional rights to the Scots or the Welsh to decide whenever they wanted on independence. And when you do decide, if that ever did happen, that either the English decided to go straight on that matter, or the Scots and the Welsh persuaded them to have a negotiation, it would have to be on the basis of one nation, one vote. So if the Scots and the Welsh teamed up, and agreed common program, they could actually say to us as English people, this is what we want, and it'd be really difficult for us. So, and why do I say one? But that's how it is in the world, isn't it? One nation, every nation's equal. In the European Union, the Council of Ministers, every nation from Malta to Germany has one vote. Um, the United Nations is the same. If England wanted to merge with Denmark, we couldn't just say to Denmark, look, come on, join us on the basis of one person, one vote. Because the Danish would say, well, you're outvote us all day long. So go away and see you in Legoland. And by the way, the prices are going up. So we wouldn't even try it. It would be a complete disaster. So, but we've had that relationship with Wales and Scotland for the last X hundred years. And so we're used to it now. But it isn't satisfactory. It isn't satisfactory. We do need a solution whereby the in England we can have we say we sort of make it clear to the other nations this is what we think we should be able to do if we want to decide to leave the UK. Okay, we want to renegotiate our relationships with you and open up negotiations with Scotland or Wales on those arrangements. Not that we would use them straight away, but just to highlight that, and then obviously in return have no issue with Wales or Scotland having exactly the same rights of self-determination as us. Okay. And if we're not happy to do that, then at root there's a power game going on. We're England, we're the biggest ones. This is the way it's been for 300 years or more, and we're not going to change anytime soon. Why would you suddenly start getting angry about that? Come on, aren't there bigger issues in the world? So we were not much different from America. We're dealing with Greenland, Spain dealing with Catalonia, or Somalia dealing with Somaliland, or all sorts of other places in the world. But it's just harder to see because it's ours. But every other nation can see it. If you put that to for example, Scandinavian nations, they all the small nations of Europe, they're just yeah, of course, it's obvious. The bigger nations might start to think, oh God, which regions of our country might start to get the same dangerous idea. So again, they would have the big nation mentality they might help us as English people to keep our control. But at the end of the day, the best thing we want in the world is for people to be free, okay? And for relationships between nations to be on the basis of free association. And that can be to a greater level with all sorts of different kinds. It could be right to political unity with the right of self-determination of different parts, all the way down to some loose confederation or association, whatever countries can negotiate as equals. So that's why I think that we should think about that idea of English self-determination, not just for our own sakes, but to kind of put things on a clear footing for all other nations. And if we did that very generously and we trusted the Scots and the Welsh not to suddenly call a the independence referendum to annoy us, and then that would build a trust in a different way um, over time, and hopefully could improve our relationships without actually ever having a significant disruption. Well, that's what we don't want: significant disruption to everyday life from constitutional niceties. Okay, so but you can trust politicians to get down their heads into the detail to come up with solutions. The Liberal Democrats, for example, I'm not a member of them for lots of reasons, but they've done a huge amount of work on the federal UK options. So we can all there's so many countries we can learn from as well on that. Yeah. So if we ever get to the point of having to decide on this issue of self-determination, because the idea of freedom has become such a big thing for us individually and as a society, then I would like to see the Liberal Democrats involved in taking a lead on that because they've done the hard work, the hard yards, and that I suspect when it comes down to the detail, there'll be a lot of crossover. There'll be a lot of shared ideas with reform and with reform candidates, and they might educate us on things we haven't thought of. Um, so yeah, so I'll leave that with you. Thank you.